Wow. So what do you think
But
Mimbres Valley?
let me tell you something. Let's
Yeah.
get this straightened out.
Yeah.
The Mimbres Valley
Uh-huh.
is a long valley and it's got a river right in the center. And it's mostly farmland. When people start homesteading the property, they will get hundreds of acres. So there weren't many houses. In fact, I can tell you that the Cordovas had, I think it was 200 acres. I'm not too sure. My grandfather. Now he got that from his father, and his father got that from his father. So there was three different families there. When somebody died, well, you take over, you know. And that's my grandfather took over, and my father was born there, and my mother was born just about 4 miles further north with my other grandfather. So anyway, there was just not too many farmers. And let me tell you, a lot of people don't know, but this country here, the first people in this country were Spanish, from Spain. So the first place that landed was in Florida. And then they came up the Gulf of Mexico, and all of Mexico was under Spanish rule. It was Spanish. And then the British started coming in, and they came up by Boston, New York, and stuff like that, and they started settling in what's now the United States, right?
Right.
But Florida and Texas, Arizona, New Mexico, and California were all part of Mexico. So my dad was born in New Mexico, but was still under, it was already American. It was 3 generations. It was 3 brothers that came from Spain, and they came by Florida and then into the Gulf of Mexico, and they end up in what is Juarez, Mexico, right close to El Paso. Okay, so right away when they landed, they started looking for places to, mostly mines, to work in gold mines, silver mines. So they found out there was a brand new silver mine in Georgetown. So those 3 brothers, they got a job right there right away when they came from Spain. So then they found out that one of the brothers found out that the United States was coming out this way, and the government had passed a law that if you were willing to farm the land and develop it, you could homestead it, 10 acres at a time. So one of my great-great-grandfathers did that. So it was a lot of mountains. I'll show you the mountains after a while. The mountains where my grandfather used to have a lot of cattle there.
And so you had agriculture over there, and you had a bunch of silver mines too. So that was beautiful land right there.
And we used to live in Mimbres Valley. But then you climb up, drive about 3 miles up in the hillside, and that was Georgetown. There's a road, dirt road, that goes up to Georgetown.
Uh-huh.
It was never paved or anything. It's real narrow.
Is that like a village area?
Huh?
Is that like a village Main Street area, Georgetown, or just a few other ranches?
It's nothing but ranches.
Ranches, okay.
And they built this road to go up to Georgetown. It's before there was any ranches. Anyway, the Mimbres Valley's got a road, dirt road. Yeah, it was dirt when we used to live there. And we used to have to walk about 2 miles north. And when we got to that, to the intersection of the highway, the road that goes up to Georgetown,
Yeah.
right the corner there, they built a little grocery store.
Mm-hmm.
Walter Moore owned that store. And that's where we used to buy most of our stuff that we needed.
Right.
But once a month or whatever, my dad used to go all the way to Silver City or those towns and buy more groceries and stuff like that. But we had a small little grocery store. And then by that grocery store, across the street a little ways, they opened a post office, the Mimbres post office, which was so small. The one lady used to operate that. And then there's a little, that road that I was telling you goes to Georgetown, just a little ways, about 2 blocks. And then to the right, that's where they built our schoolhouse. That's where I went to school. They started school there.
So who built it though? The government?
Yeah, I don't know when they held it, but it's probably owned by the government.
Yeah.
Yeah. It was just a 2-room schoolhouse.
Uh-huh.
They used to call it the little room and the big room. The little room was from kindergarten up to 4th or 5th grade, something like that. And then the big room was for older people, higher grade. That was run by a school teacher, by Mr. Ferris. And the school where I started, the room where I started school, was a female teacher. So I was probably in my 1st grade. And see, I was a smart ass all the time. I don't know if I told you, but I had a slingshot, a rubber band, and I made a speedball. And I went like this, and I hit the teacher on the butt. She was on the board. You're writing something. We had a huge blackboard on the wall, right? And she would write different words and stuff like that. And I, boom! She jumped. She turned around. And by the way, how did she know? I don't know. She says, Frank, why did you do that? I don't know.
So how old were those mines? Like they found some caves and turned them into mines?
There was no caves.
No caves?
I don't think, because I didn't see any caves.
Because remember how you were saying they lowered
Gene and I visited that place.
Remember how you said they lowered your brother into one of the caves and he found corn from the old Indians?
Oh, that's a different deal.
That's a different place?
That's a different deal. That's where the Indians used to live, in caves.
Nearby this area or no?
See, let me tell you. Way back then, when the colonies and the Spaniards first come to this land,
right.
Half of that, there was Indians all over.
Yeah, yeah.
They had Indians. That's the reason there's so many different tribes of Indians. So, what was that you asked me?
Where was that near Mimbres Valley, where they lowered your brother into that cave where he found where the Indians...
That's about, I would say that's about 20 miles north of...
But still pretty close.
Pretty close, about 20 miles, yeah. That's why, when my dad and my uncle discovered those caves, my dad said they discovered it, but to me, I don't know. They said they discovered those caves, but they were real high up in the cliff. So you wonder how did the Indians live up there? Because every time you have a huge rain, the water is muddy. You cannot use it. And that water was dirty by the time it got to the river.
Rinsing the land away, so it seemed like it was higher because it had been rinsing the land away.
Okay, so in time, the water level went down.
Right.
You're washing all that dirt away, right?
Yep.
So the water level goes down, so the caves are way up there now. But at one time, the Indians could get into those caves easy. So when my dad and my dear discovered those caves, they always wonder how to get up there,
right,
and to see what was in those caves.
Uh-huh.
So that's where they lowered my brother Albert, with the rope,
uh-huh,
and they had some horses up there because it was kind of level up there, and they lowered him. My brother was lowered about 20 feet from the level land.
Right.
He went down about 20 feet, and he got in there in those caves. Albert he told me he's about 8, 9 years old.
He might have been a little nervous, huh?
Well, yeah, but at that time, there was no Indians there.
With a lantern? He was lowered in the cave with a lantern?
No, because, the caves are pretty good-sized caves. You could almost see inside.
Ah.
They weren't just a small cave. The Indians used to have the whole family there.
Okay, let me ask you a quick question about those caves. This is very interesting to me. Was there a path leading up to the caves that you eventually found?
At one time it was.
Okay. And how do you think the Indians got in and out of those caves? With ropes too?
No.
How do you get grandma in and out?
Because the land was almost level.
Ah.
Unless, in New Mexico you could see where there was a lot of, the Indians used to build step ladders. We used to climb there.
Right.
But if you have the women and kids, they're pretty hard to do something like that. It was pretty high. So after a time, when it gets too high, they get the hell out.
Right.
Because nobody's going to climb 20 feet up in step ladders. They used to have a lot of caves, but there in the center, close to the center of all those caves, they used to have a place where they used to build fire, and everybody used to cook there. And there was a huge It was in the form of a bulb. So they used to build big fire, burn wood, and different families would be cooking all the way around that fire.
Huh.
Oh yeah, they had a cave, but then they enlarged it for families. That's the way the Indians used to live. That's why the Indians used to survive. Okay, but gradually they had to move somewhere else because it was real hard for them to get up there or to get down. But gradually, as the river goes down, the river was washing the dirt away. So before you know it, you have to get out of the caves because you can live there.
So that's pretty interesting that it was such a rich area with the agriculture, with the river, and with the silver mines. And these spirits, these evil spirits, pushed everybody out of this great area. So I think that sometimes they're evil spirits that try to get people out of some areas. That's what they do.
Let me tell you right next door.
Yeah?
This happened just about 3 years ago.
Uh-huh.
This house was for sale. So she put up the house for sale. They listed it, and this Japanese guy that lives there now came over and bought it. But before he bought it, he looked at it, and he came over here, and he introduced himself. He says, I'm thinking about buying the house there. But they says, how long have you lived there? I told him, I've lived over here a long 55 years. So, and he said, well, the reason I'm asking you is because I'm thinking of buying the house. But I want to know if anybody ever died in the house.
That's a good question to ask.
Yeah. He says,
question.
oh, no. He said, no. I told him, no. I told him the whole story. I told you. His wife died in the hospital and Jim died.
Because you don't want to buy a house a lot of people died in. It could be something wrong with the house. It could be like lead paint. It could be something wrong with the water. It could be something...
No.
It could be something bad.
He was afraid about a ghost.
Okay, he was afraid of ghosts.
Okay. A lot of people now, in fact, now it's a state law that if you sell a house, you gotta let them know, the buyer, if somebody ever died there.
You think it's because of ghosts?
Yep.
Yeah? That's interesting. When did that law come in effect?
I don't
Recently?
know, but Darlene was just telling me about it, and I had read about it, but I didn't pay much attention to it.
Now the reason...
But now he said, Darlene was telling me, it's a state law now
Right.
that if somebody had died in the house, you're supposed to let the people know.